Hello and welcome to a Guardian film show in which the old order cannot hold and nothing is quite as it seems. Coming up, we shall see the servant turned master, the slacker turned Superman, and the fat cat American turned whimpering, scurrying little mouse. We have about 20 minutes to replace the correct labels and hopefully set this crazed, cockeyed world to rights.
There's a tank out there. We need to move.
What?
Without further ado, here's this week's films. Owen Wilson and Lake Bell take a work trip to hell in the hysterical No Escape.
Let's hope that the Baron will never find out.
Jessica Chastain and Colin Farrell go positively feudal in Liv Ullmann's adaptation of Miss Julie. And teen romance turns as serious as cancer in the indie weepy Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. We kick off, however, with American Ultra, a drowsy, everyday tale of a dope-smoking slacker and his put-upon girlfriend, except that they, and possibly us, have a big surprise in store. Jesse Eisenberg plays Mike Howell, a timid boy-man stoner who earns a meagre crust as a convenience store clerk.
Mandelbrot set is in motion. Echo Choir has been breached.
Is that a lyric from something?
But Mike Howell, it transpires, is a sleeper agent, the last survivor of a secret government program, trained to kill at the drop of a hat. Girlfriend Kristen Stewart has just seen a whole new side of this doofus.
No, I didn't call the police because I have like a lot of weed and like mushrooms in my car.
How did this happen?
I don't know, but I'm like freaking out all over the place. Babe, I have a lot of anxiety about this. I'm sorry.
Honoured to be propped up and made credible by Henry Barnes and Catherine Shord. Henry, these two last worked together on the lovely Adventureland a few years back.
Yeah.
Is the chemistry still the same this time round?
It is, and the chemistry between them is the one saving grace of this dreadful, dreadful film. There's a lot made about originality in Hollywood these days, and Max Landis, who wrote this, son of John, said that the reason that this film bombed at the US box office was because people are frightened of originality. And the originality he's taken here is the originality of the Bourne legacy and the originality of Kevin Smith's work, and basically cram them together into a construct that works for about 20 minutes, and then you're so bored and so dulled by all this terrible action that goes on. It loses all the strands. It's not funny enough to be a stoner comedy. It's not exciting enough to be an action film. It just lacks any interest whatsoever. But Jesse and Kristen are good.
And they're both really good actors.
They're really good actors. Seeing them working together is great, and they have a lot of personality, a lot of chemistry. You believe they're a relationship. You believe they're in love,
And
which you don't get very often.
he brings a kind of pathos to a role that might otherwise just be this kind of cardboard cutout idiot.
Yeah, for the first 45 minutes, because you get a sense of both Mike and Phoebe being stuck in a dead-end town, wanting better for themselves, but being frightened of their own ambition, essentially. And, you know, that's an indie drama in the making there, which could be interesting once you throw all the action stuff at it. But after that, he just becomes one of your Teutonic smashing heroes, and it's not really faithful to the character, to the story, or even to the actors that they've cast.
Catherine, are you a fan of these two?
Yeah, individually and together, and they're in the new Woody Allen film together. So that bodes well, I think. I think it is very ironic about Max Landis, and he does look a real, piece of work. And he's got this. I was just looking through the Toronto schedule, and he's written this movie, which sounds like one of those spoof movies that you get in films sometimes, which is Anna Kendrick falls for Sam Rockwell, then realises he's a hitman.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God.
happened to us all.
Yeah.
And it's the least original concept, and even the least original casting for that you could possibly imagine. Amazing.
I'm going to save my girlfriend. The old frying pan bullet trick.
Bourne meets Bong on the whiplashing American Ultra. And as luck would have it, there's still more shape-shifting and power struggles in our next movie. Please bow your head and bend your knee for the arrival of Miss Julie.
When I was a little boy, lying there in secret looking at you in the garden and saw you walking among the roses, I saw your slim white ankles, well, I tell you now. I had the same nasty thoughts like all young boys.
It's Midsummer Eve in the house of the Baron, and the class struggle boils down to 3 figures in a room. Loaded up on wine and lust, Jessica Chastain's aristocrat duly makes a play for Colin Farrell's valet, much to the consternation of Samantha Morton's pious cook.
Stop it.
And so the walls of the house come tumbling down.
Now kiss my shoe. Excellent.
Catherine, who could have imagined that 3 people in a room with a camera rolling could be such an agonising experience?
Yes, we're not really reenacting it, are we? Yeah, this is interesting, isn't it? I mean, so Liv Ullmann wanted to take the text back from Strindberg because she felt that his author's note was extremely sexist and wrong. And classist. And classist, because he sort of felt that classes shouldn't mate like dogs and humans. And Liv Ullmann feels differently. And this is an attempt to do that. And I think it's actually really interesting. It's quite a hard watch, certainly.
It's exacting, isn't it?
It's certainly exacting. It's a screamingly mean film. It's really, really mean and horrible. And I think what Ullmann's intention is to make people feel compassionate, and act compassionately in relief from this, and because they've seen that this is not a very nice way to behave, really. And it is interesting. She sort of changed the text so that after they're going to have sex, they have sex, and then there's a sort of very distressing bedroom scene where she examines herself and there's blood. And that is quite sort of graphic and interesting, but it is certainly. And
what does that do in terms of the sympathies of the audience? That makes the Miss Julie character more vulnerable, more sympathetic, and undermines the Farrell character.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's just a twist, isn't it? I mean, so she starts as a complete bitch, and you gradually warm up to her in basic terms, whereas he becomes worse as the film goes on. Yeah, he certainly does. Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and he's quite good in it. I mean, he's quite, it shows a bit of range that he's terribly much better as a bastard, I think, than as a lovable rogue.
I wonder why that might be. But no, I thought he was great. I thought she struggled with the accent, the Irish accent, occasionally wavered.
Yeah, a little bit, I suppose. I don't know, it didn't really bother me. It's also artificial. It's also like a play.
Yeah.
They don't really make that much of an effort to sort of, cinema it up a bit.
Is that a bonus, though? I mean, I started out really liking that kind of absolutely claustrophobic intensity of it, and the fact that you can hear the villagers all celebrating outside, but you never actually see them. And then, but it does extend for sort of over 2 hours. Yeah,
what's she going to do there? I mean, you can't just then put them in a funfair or something. I mean, there's limits. I think she does well. I think it's really good and really brave and interesting and quite sort of easy to recommend on some level and hard to recommend on another, because it's uncompromising stuff, but really interesting.
The third person in this little troika is Samantha Morton as Colin Farrell's fiancée and the cook. And while these two have all these kind of dense monologues to get through, she has to do more with a look.
Yeah, she does. I mean, Samantha Morton's film career is an interesting one, and one feels a bit sorry that she's sort of fallen out of the limelight a bit. Be interesting to see what they all do next, including Liv Ullmann, which, given that she's a 77-year-old...
you met her, didn't you, in Toronto?
Really liked her.
How was she, yeah?
Yeah, because you think, wow, she'll be quite the sort of, potentially quite the diva, particularly after this. And no, she's an incredibly human person, very, very quick to sort of tear up and cry, very against Donald Trump, and a really sympathetic person, and really sort of engaged with cinema and interested in the world, and I would like her to do a more conventional film, and be really interested to see that.
I can't control her.
What have you been doing?
Do you think that I'm in love with a valet? But an imagination.
Perhaps there isn't quite as much difference as they think between human beings and human beings.
A servant is a servant.
And a whore is a whore!
Don't speak harshly to me!
Now you know what it feels like.
Chastain and Farrell lock antlers and loins in Miss Julie, but for an altogether more wholesome view of romance, we must turn to Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, although these kids better get a move on. Time is running out.
What happened?
Well, I just got off the phone with Denise Kushner, Rachel's mom. You know Denise?
Not really.
You're friends with Rachel, though.
Yeah, I mean, we're like acquainted.
Rachel's been diagnosed with leukemia. They just found out.
In a perfect world, gawky young Greg would be hanging out with his buddy Earl, not visiting pale, peaky Rachel, who has been diagnosed with leukemia. But the planet's imperfect, and the stars have all crossed, and at least one of these three friends is about to find heaven.
So if this was a touching romantic story, then suddenly we would be making out with the fire of 1,000 suns. But this isn't a touching romantic story. Anyway.
Yep.
Catherine, this won 2 big prizes at Sundance, didn't it? So it must be good.
Yeah, you'd think, wouldn't you? I hated this so much. It was almost unbearable. I almost had to leave. It makes Fault in Our Stars look like an absolute stone-cold masterpiece. It's so irritating. It's so unmoving, so pretentious, so unfunny, so just ghastly. It's really quite amazing. And yeah, so it won audience and jury in Sundance, like Whiplash, which, you know, probably deserved it, although, you know, yeah, probably deserved it. And like something like Crazy, which obviously didn't deserve it. And this is so much worse even than that. It's just incredible. And of course, the reason it won is, I mean, it's basically a kid's film. You know, if you were about 11, you might think this was all right, I think. But the reason is that these 2 kids do these Swedish versions, which you see a hell of a lot of sort of classics. That
They do Senior Citizen Kane and Pooping Tom.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. Thank you for reminding me of this film.
So you and Greg are co-workers?
We make films. We've been making them since we were little.
That was good.
And I guess that's why it won. But there's no way that these kids would have seen the originals. No. But I guess in Sundance, do people think that that's clever or funny or something? I mean, do they really sort of buy it? I cannot describe. I mean, I haven't really thought about this film since I've seen it because I was worried I might become ill. You know, it's just so insufferable. It doesn't have any integrity, this film. Yeah. I mean, I think it's partly based on this director's life, but I mean, you know, the twists of plot they just make you sick. It's got no integrity. It's really a real bullshit film, this.
And really, it's also that infuriating thing of all indie cinema is good cinema, which is absolutely untrue, you know.
But it's interesting that...
Or even if it's bad in a kind of interesting, odd way.
Yeah,
this is interesting endeavour. Yeah.
But it hasn't done well, this, in the States. It's interesting. I mean, unlike Whiplash, which obviously did do pretty well, and even like Crazy didn't do that badly, but this hasn't taken off at all with audiences. I suppose because it falls between their 2 stools of, you know, the Fault in Our Stars crowd, and, you know, there's no one especially sexy in this, so they're going to, you know, turn off that. And then adults, are you really going to go and see it? Well, it's going to look a bit weird and creepy, so they're not. But I guess in Sundance, it's not weird and creepy to like a film like this. It's de rigueur, which is troubling.
Greg, you never told me.
Well, we never told anybody about them. They suck. I mean, they're terrible.
I'm pretty sure they don't suck.
Well, you can see for yourself if you want.
Are you sure?
Hell yeah, don't even worry about it.
Find a place in your heart for Me and Earl and The Dying Girl. Alternatively, if you prefer something with a little more pace, a few more guns, a few more evil, murderous foreigners, may we direct your attention to No Escape, in which a wholesome American family finds themselves a long way from home. Owen Wilson has come to Southeast Asia to bring fresh water to the locals. But the locals are ungrateful. The locals are revolting. And now Wilson and his family are herring about a city in crisis, going, ah! Or some variation of, ah! And you better believe they're not in Texas anymore.
We're gonna get through this, okay?
Get your head down!
Henry, whereabouts is this set?
It is set east. It's east.
Yeah.
So obviously if you're on holiday in the east, you've got to be terrified of all the brown people running around because they're all going to kill you. This is terrible. This is flat out rubbish. It's really awful. There's a key scene where Owen Wilson and family are on top of a skyscraper and he's going to throw his daughters across to the other side of the skyscraper to escape the baying horde.
There's quite a gap.
It's quite a gap. So he takes a run up and he throws her in loads of slow motion in this film. Slow motion. And all I thought was, I wish someone, a hero, maybe Yuzan, would come and take me out the screening room and throw me slow motion or otherwise towards the exit. It's just so bad. Pierce Brosnan is terrible. The one thing that they have...
Pierce Brosnan looks like he's come in from a different movie, doesn't he?
Yeah. He's like, I guess, Crocodile Dundee.
Yes,
like a kind of drunken, wobbling Australian version.
And going to the strip club.
Yeah, going to the strip club, if I'm not saving your life. And then there's one scene where they try and justify the whole premise of the film, which is where he's talking about, oh, corporations will come in and it's my fault as a, lead agent for them, I'm ruining the economy, and then you come in, it's our fault that they're trying to kill us.
I'm the one who put your family in harm's way. Least I can do is get you out of the bloody place.
And then you go back to the screaming horde.
It's given about sort of 20 seconds. The whole context of this thing is kind of done in 20 seconds.
And the one local character who's given any sympathy at all is called Kenny Rogers and is basically whiter-sized for the film. It's dreadful, it's truly bad.
And foreigners eat dogs, apparently.
Yeah, but they say it's chicken. I think if you take away the latent racism, or not latent, but, I don't think this is bad, actually. I'm afraid I quite enjoyed watching it. I think it's rather engaging. I thought the bit where they disguise themselves as locals and go on a moped, even though they're massive and obviously
He's got his big shaggy blonde hair, but with a little scarf around his face.
Blue eyes peeking out.
I mean, yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think that's a justified point. However, as an action film, not so bad. Not so bad, not so bad.
I don't think they really give Owen Wilson any action. The one point where I thought it might be quite good is
he kills people.
Yeah, but not with any style. It's not like it's not a Bourne, is it? There's no real choreography.
But it's not meant to be. He's just, he's a dad who doesn't do this sort of thing normally. But
he's
he's
just
got
like
a
us,
yeah.
How would
we
you
do in that
cope in
situation?
non-specific Southeast Asia?
I did think the fashion was rather familiar. I thought, hold on, I've got that shirt. There is one great scene, the opening scene, where they kind of misdirect you about what's going to happen with the assassination of the leader of this country.
Film, and then...
Yeah, and we started to go into this really intriguing, almost semi-political thriller. And I thought, this is going to be really good. And Catherine had told me it was great beforehand, so I was looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And then, and then my soul was just crushed.
I just think if you can shut your eyes to the racism.
Shut your eyes, full stop.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm going to stand up for it. I kind of enjoyed it. I didn't think Brosnan was that bad. I thought he was a bit like he's in Matador. I mean, yeah, there's some problems, there's some issues, but it's perfectly watchable. But you just need to turn off the racism bit of your brain.
Get out of the pool! Come here! Get out of the pool!
Owen Wilson running for his life in the borderline ridiculous No Escape. And that's our cue to get our skates on too. Heartfelt thanks as ever to Catherine and to Henry, and rest assured we're back next week. No Escape.